Into it. Okay, we are recording. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We're gonna wait about a minute to see if we can get some people in. And if not, that is okay because I am so excited for our conversation today. Like I have been nerding out about it for several days now. So I am just super excited. Let me share my screen and we will get going. Sorry, guys. Taking just a moment to share my screen. And that's okay. That is all right. Oh no. I have one of those days. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to share my screen really quickly, make this fit so you can see all the fun things that is and are and all the things. Awesome. Awesome. Welcome to the Copy Clinic with Kelly Harris. I'm your host, and we are going to have an amazing time together. This session is part of Modern Business Mastery, and I am a resident council member. I help entrepreneurs to find their voice, live it purposefully and powerfully through their confidence with my patented heart framework. So it is so exciting to be here. Like I said, my name is Kelly Harris. I help you make your message matter more, converting subscribers to superfans effortlessly with my heart framework. I am a mama to 4 beautiful babies, ages 14, 11, 5, and 13 months. So, and we have 2 dogs. So our house is a crazy busy place to be. And I love it. And I'm married to an amazing guy who, is so supportive. Every time I'm like, hey, I have an idea, he's like, okay. So just so very blessed. If you'd like to connect with me, and I highly would recommend that you do, you can connect with me on Instagram at Kelly Harris Creative, Facebook, Kelly Harris Copywriter. Sorry, I'm looking on my phone to see if anybody else is joining us. It's all good. LinkedIn, Kelly Harris Creative 208. And if you just want to send me an email, Kelly with a Y at kellyharriscreative.com. Like I said, this is part of Modern Business Mastery. This is a community session, which is fantastic. If you are not part of the Modern Business Mastery community, I highly recommend that you consider it. This is one of only 2 places that I have found in 4 years of entrepreneurship that is a fantastic community that goes out of their way to help you succeed, and that really it's a place for you to grow. So you can connect with us with our Modern Business Mastery free community. It's a Mighty Networks. Please join. It is fantastic. You can connect with Modern Business Mastery at LinkedIn, on Instagram, or on YouTube at Modern Business Mastery Official. Awesome. So Modern Business Mastery free community, why would you want to join it? Like I said, it is an amazing community that we are here to give you tools and support needed for both your well-being and your business growth. Inside, you're going to find sessions and mini trainings, monthly virtual work sprints, mastery elements for personal and business growth, bi-monthly copy clinic to support your messaging, fitness and nutrition support, access to resources, networking, quarterly book club, and more. And let me just be really clear with you. With the Copy Clinic, you submit your copy and I will give you feedback on it, ways that you can make it connect more and make your message matter more, but also ways that you can get more eyeballs on your stuff. So every month we have a copy, every other month we have a Copy Clinic, and on the months that we don't have a Copy Clinic, we have a copy chat, where we get to have a mini lesson so that you can learn something to help your writing get even better. If you need more support than the free community, check in Modern Business Mastery Academy. It's designed for entrepreneurs who want clear action steps. They're going to give you a custom business strategy portfolio. It's expert-led. It's a personalized support, and it's a community of collaboration. It is really, like I said, one of only 2 places I've ever found on the internet that have this level of support, and this level of community. If you want even more support, you can do Modern Business Mastery 360. This is a year-long business mentorship community that combines one-on-one coaching with our group sessions to help guide you through your business week by week. We're not meant to do life alone. We were not meant to do business alone. So we offer all kinds of support there. And then if none of those things are a good fit for you right now, check out the yearly courses and the workshops. That way you can kickstart your business or level up your whole operation, and it's super, super affordable. Upcoming in the Modern Business Mastery community, like we've said, we've got work bubbles, we've got Nourish and Flourish, we've got copy clinics, we've got reflection and planning sessions, excuse me, pardon me, and then we have community sessions. All of these are designed to support you. Now, every copy clinic that I do starts with a mini lesson. And since we did not have many people submit copy, I was left to my own devices. And like I said earlier, I am so excited to talk about the mini lesson topic today. It will probably be the prime bulk of our time together. But if you use these and learn to use these and learn to use these effectively, this is a really great way to get people engaged and to keep them engaged. So today we're going to talk about open loops. What are open loops? How do we use them? The 6 kinds of open loops, and how could we create compelling teasers and open loops in our own business and in our own writing. And then after that, we are going to go into our copy clinic submission, and it's just going to be incredible. So, what are open loops? Open loops are a writing technique that leave out details or they leave unresolved situations to create curiosity or urgency. The goal is to keep the reader engaged and wanting more. Why do what are we doing? We're setting the stage. Open loops, one way to think of them, and this doesn't always apply, but one way that's really easy to think about them is they're mysteries. You're given some information, but not enough to actually solve the mystery. Oh, sorry. Why are open loops effective? Why do they work? Well, the human brain is wired for one thing, and that is closure. We are all about patterns in the world, patterns in life, and we want those things to be tied up in a nice little bow, closed, put on the shelf. So when we're in the middle of a task, we're actually driven to complete it before we break because we want the satisfaction of actually finishing that task. So they're effective because it kind of ties into the psychology of your brain and your brain wanting to finish this task. It's creating engagement. This opens up a fun twist because if you're interrupted mid-task, there's that itch in our brain that wants us to finish the thing. Unfinished business keeps us hooked. It's one of those things that you think, oh my gosh, I have that thing I have to do later. I have that thing I have to do later. It's not complete. So it's high in your brain log. It's that thing you're thinking about over and over and over again. And it's creating some leverage. It creates some leverage in your copy. By creating something intriguing and you leaving it slightly unresolved, you're actually inviting the reader to come back. Come back, find out what happens next. Help me solve this mystery. So one of the ways that we can use open loops is to break up your content. Think of it like this. The original Star Wars movies, if you've seen episode 4, 5, and 6, there were open loops in each one of them. And I know between episode 5 and episode 6, there was about 7 years that left people wondering, You know, Obi-Wan said that Luke has a twin sister. Obi-Wan talked about like his father. We have so many questions, and they literally had to wait years to have those questions answered. Think of it like series. Like if you're are friends, you know, you loved Friends when you were watching it back in the day, or even now if you're binging on it, a lot of those series that we like to watch, Doctor Who, things like that, they have open loops because they're leaving it at a cliffhanger, or they're asking this question and then they just kind of go about it and they never give you the answer until like 4 episodes later. Those are open loops. Those are things that are meant to delay the ending, that are meant to keep you engaged, keep you asking questions, having you go back and watch it over and over and over again, because those are things that we 100%, we want the answer to. We need this closure. And here's another thing, and I can't remember if it's later or if I've already said it. One of the things that is great about open loops is that it keeps us wondering, it keeps us engaged, it keeps us coming back. When we get the answer, it gets tied up in a nice little bow and it gets put on the shelf, and then our brains forget about it. This is one of the reasons that you will see open loops be super, super effective in like advertising and sales pages and reels and things like that. Another way that you can use an open loop to break up your content is through a series. And like we talked about, like Friends and things like that. There are actually 2 types of open loops: the macro loops, so like the big, huge loops, and then what they call micro loops, which we'll talk about both as we continue to move forward with this. There are 6 types of open loops. There's project loops, series loops, story loops, segment loops, moment loops, and then what they call but. And I'm going to change that to but ... or and. And we'll talk about that here in just a little while. What are project loops? Project loops are macro. They're big. You're exploring one question throughout the entire project. Often this one question is like the point of your project. So this is about the journey. An example of a project loop, my newsletter is a project loop. I started my newsletter for 2 reasons. One was to begin to gain followers and begin to build my audience, but I also started my newsletter as a way to serve people. So basically, I started it as a way to be like, I want to write about copywriting, I want to write about business, and I want to write about life, because somebody needs to hear what I'm saying. So my premise is that every time I write, I have a monthly theme, and within that monthly theme, I basically write a newsletter to my best friend, and that ends up being the thing that goes out. That's work, life, business, copywriting. It's all the things. It's about the journey of day to day, month to month, year to year. And the only way that we close this loop, there's 2 ways. Primarily, we say, cool, we're done. We've come to the end of this project. Or you could say, I'm not done with my newsletter, but maybe I'm going to take the last 5 years of my newsletter, and I'm going to make a capstone project out of this, and I'm going to turn it into a book because I can get to more people. And the ideas in the newsletter are solid, and we're still exploring these same premises and these same sources of tension and questions, but maybe I'm reformatting and doing a big project based on this little project, if that makes sense. So that's why it's called a micro or macro, a macro loop, because it is a big loop. So there is that. It's a big loop. The next one that you could potentially write is a series loop. Series loops, they are also macro loops, but they are contained in a specific container. What that means is we have a specific number of editions, we have a specific number of podcasts, we have a specific number of reels, we have a specific number of newsletters. No, you don't have to do all of those things. You can say, I'm going to make the next Perfect, a series loop. I did a series loop last December. At that time, I had a Facebook group, and at that time, sorry, someone messaged me about the group. At that time, I did a video every single day in December for your tips, your tricks, your copywriting advice for 2024. And I went and I did I did a video every single day. Actually, what I did was I built out the premise of what I was going to do. And then I bulk went in and shot a video. So I would shoot like 3 or 4 videos a day. And then at that time I had a software that I just put it in every week. I would go in and say, here's the next 7 days worth of videos. Please drop to this place at this time. And so it was a series. It was a defined number. There were 31 3 to 5 minute videos, 31 of them. And they explored questions. They explored tensions moving into 2024, those kinds of things. You can use a series and explore one question. You can position it with one big question, because we're going to raise the stakes and we're going to say something like, what does it take to hold attention and not just grab it? Like, we can grab it, but how do we keep it? And we're going to talk about that over these next 8 newsletters. We're going to talk about that over these next 8 reels. So a series is still a big project, but it's a defined container that we are actually exploring this question in. So sorry, guys. As typical, when you do things like this, it never fails that the whole world suddenly needs you when you're on a Zoom call. So we're just gonna keep moving forward. It's all good. We're at series. So far, we've talked about project and we've talked about series. We've got one more of the macros. Here's how you remember the 6. There's 3 macros and 3 micros. So our first one was project. Project big, series, small, fit container. And then we go into the next thing. Oh, there's one more thing about series here. To close a series loop, you have to answer the question that you proposed at the beginning. That is the only way you can close a series loop. We're doing this in 4 reels, and we're going to answer this question. And then you actually have to answer the question. It's just a thing. You have to do the thing. And this can work in your writing, this can work in your reels, this can work in video. Like this, yes, is a copywriting technique, but this is all about engagement, engaging your audience, keeping them in your world, in your content, and we'll talk about why here shortly. And then the next big one is a story loop. A story loop encompasses the whole from beginning to end. And the reason I put a storybook, you start with Once Upon a Time. We're going to end with They All Lived Happily Ever After, if it's a fairy tale. But whatever the question is, the moral question, whatever, that's proposed at the very beginning, you have the story to answer it. Whereas the project is an ongoing thing, and the series, we have 5 episodes or however many series in the series, a story, we're telling it all at once. We're doing it. Each story has its own question. Each story has its own nice bow at the end. They are freestanding. Whereas a series may leave a cliffhanger question, the story is going to wrap it all up nice and pretty and all perfect. It's so pretty. It's so wonderful. We're asking the big questions. Here's one huge tip, because most of you know that I am an avid believer in using stories to build relationships. And I was doing some research. In fact, a lot of this stuff that I learned came from 2 to 3 primary articles. But one of the articles was talking about a lot of people tell stories. A lot of people are really great about having that hook at the beginning, that question, what we're going to answer. And then they don't answer the question. So they unintentionally create an open loop, and they never go back and tie it up. And so you can ask the big questions, but if you're doing a story loop, we have to answer them. And we have to go back and say, remember that question that we talked about at the very beginning? Why we're doing what we're doing, or, how do we get people how do we not just grab their attention, but hold their attention? Here are your three key takeaways. Years ago, I taught as a teacher, and one of the things that we did is we had to have I can statements. These were literally taken from the Oklahoma education website. They would say, like, the child should be able to count to 20. So the I can statement was, I can count to 20. And then we'd start at the very beginning of our lesson. Okay, guys, today we're going to figure out how to count. Like, this is what we're going to do. The board says I can count to 20. So here's our lesson. And then at the end, you would revisit that and recap it and say, remember, what was the thing that we were supposed to be doing today? I can count to 20. Yes, you can. Did we succeed? Did we hit that goal? And I always point at the board. That's why I'm doing that. But, like, did we do that? Yeah. So when you're doing a story loop, we got to go back and make sure that we've done the, like, brief little recap. Think of it as like the Reader's Digest, unless you're too old for that or too young for that. Like, it's just the recap. Take 30 seconds, 2 minutes overall. What was our question? What were the key takeaways here? Cool. Because then you're making sure that, again, you're putting a little bow on it and you're making sure that it's perfect. And then they have the ability to shelf that whole story, or you can do another story that says, remember that story? Remember the moral of our story there? So we're going to start there, and we're going to have another story that either is a different story that says, look, this also is another example of that thing, or here's another example that is a different, like, my mind is automatically going to, like, Goldilocks and the Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and then, like, Little Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf. Like, there are different morals here. There are some that kind of intertwine together and make it all pretty. And then there are some that you could say, like, these are arguing two separate points. And so with a story loop, each one is self-contained, but they can complement each other, or, be contracting ideas, I guess, contradicting ideas, I guess. All right, so now we're moving from the big ones into the mini ones. We're starting with the micros. Here's how we think about the micros. The macros were big ideas. The micros are tiny ideas. So segment loops is next. And the easiest way to think of segment loops is a dialogue between an audience member and a community, or the communicator, whoever's telling the story. Why is the story for me? Here's why. What is the best practice here? Here's what it is. These are tiny little things. I like to think of these segment loops almost as segues. Like, they are easy little tiny bits that we can kind of stick in anywhere. They're still going to cause that intrigue. We're still making people think, but it doesn't have to be this big, huge thing. You want people to go, oh my gosh, wait, why did they do that this way? Oh, wow. How did they arrive there with that idea? Who is this person? I want to know more. And so segment loops are very small, little intriguing things that you can ask the question, wrap it up. Ask the question, wrap it up. They're almost like links on a chain in a way. And so they're very small. They don't have to be huge. They don't have to be a lot of content in terms of a reel, or even within your newsletters or your sales pages, or things like that. My mind automatically goes to sales pages. Why is this thing for me? Here's why. Well, what should I do? Awesome. Is this worth it? It makes me think of the frequently asked questions within a sales page. And so these are my questions, here's my answer. These are my questions, here's my answer. And one of the reasons that we do frequently ask questions on a sales page is that you are actually addressing their potential objections up front before they ever actually speak with you. So you are using your copy to speak for you and addressing anything that might be coming up for them. The next one are moment loops. We do these every single day. These are open-ended questions to raise the stakes. These are pause for dramatic effect, things like that. I'm going to take my phone because I want to look up really quickly while you're here with me some more examples of moment loops, because we do them all the time, and we don't even realize that we're doing them. And so, hold on, let me look at this. Give me just a second. You guys are being so patient. I love it. It's awesome. All right, here we go. Moment loops. Almost. All right. You are ready. The good news is you already understand these, whether you realize them or not. So things like signposts, little teasers. You're basically planting an idea, or like you ask a question, then you give a quote. Those are all things that immediately closes the loop. You ask your question, you get a tiny spark of intrigue, close the loop. And so we do this all the time. I'm going to read just these are the tiniest of open loops. But just as anyone knows, the tiniest little creatures can change everything. So these are things where you say, what does that sound? Did that sound like? What are his opinions? You're trying to just create just a tiny little spark of intrigue with a moment loop, and then answering the question. And then, so we've done 5 of our open loops so far. We did the project, the story, the segment, and now the project, the series, the story. Now we're into the segment, and we've gotten the moment loops. And now we're going to the last of the open loops, and then we will talk briefly about how we're going to use these in our writing and our content. The last open loop is but, and I actually have kind of an issue with this one, but we'll go through it. And then we will talk about my issue here. So it says, but is the most undervalued word in creating content and crafting stories, because it is this tiny pivotal little point where you have the ability to create intrigue in an instant and create the need for them to hear what you're saying afterwards. The word but is the promise of a new idea, a different direction, or something that we hadn't even considered or heard yet. For example, this thing happened. And when this happened, this is what we learned. But then something else happened, which led to this thing. And then that thing happened, which led to this, which sounds really hard. So if you said something like, oh my goodness, Kelly, I don't love your copywriting, but you have amazing ideas. The issue that I personally have with the word but is a long time ago, I had a coach say, get the word but out of your vocabulary. Because if you go to a client and you say, oh my gosh, that was really amazing, but we didn't make as many sales as you wanted, whatever follows the word is before the word but, you are negating. So if I say, oh my gosh, you did amazing work, but I'm literally saying you really didn't do amazing work. Whatever I say next, that but has negated it. So the golden rule, what the whole point of our open loops are, is get them to stay to the end. It's not about who arrives. It's about who is going to stay. Who's going to stay in your content? Because if they don't stay, they can't build know, like, and trust. We can't inspire them to action. And if we can't inspire them to action, they can't grow, and neither can we. So I said that there was another thing I wanted to do instead of the word but, and I would say the word and is equally powerful. Where but is going to give us in a different direction and is going to give us opinions that build that idea up. So if I said, for example, your product is amazing and we didn't make as many sales as we want, so here are some new ideas. The word and is not negating. The word and is not necessarily pushing us in a different direction. The word and is giving us more options. These little loops, if you can learn to use them, they can be very, very powerful things. And I wanted to repeat something I think is so important here. It's not about who arrives. It's about people who stay day after day and watch our content. It's about the people that we inspire to take action. Because if they're taking action, they're growing. And so are we. And I've got 2 more slides before we get into our copy clinic. Let's talk about how we do this. The general format, if you're trying to create mystery with your open loop, is we're going to create mystery early on. We're going to ask a question that makes them think early on. We're going to include content in the middle that kind of hints at our solution, but doesn't right out give them the solution. You're going to give them the company's message, why we stand for what we stand. And then you can either solve the mystery if you're closing the loop, or you can create a cliffhanger. You can never solve it and leave the readers without closure. However, open loops don't have to be mysteries. You're just creating that intrigue. You're creating that suspense. And then if we're doing it in a series format, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a post. We're going to, towards the end, create some kind of mystery, some kind of intrigue, some kind of, hey, I have this thing coming. Or hey, I have this question that has come to my mind. And I'm going to spend the next four bits asking these questions and answering this question. And then you're going to repeat it till you get to the end of your series. And at the very end of your series, once again, we're going to wrap it all up. Wrap it all up and put a bow on it. So I know our mini lesson today was kind of long, but I think that there's so much power in learning how to do these things. These aren't hard. We're basically learning how to keep people engaged. We're not putting content out for the sake of putting content out. We're putting content out for growth. We're putting content out. And I had someone say this to me last week, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. If you are struggling to put out content, the question becomes, what content can you put out that is going to serve someone? Because there is somebody who needs to hear what you have to offer. There is someone, and I'm going to look and see if I can find my notes from that call that I had. There is someone who is needing what you offer, and you are doing them a disservice by not putting out that content. And while you can get scared and talk yourself out of that content, at the end of the day, you are doing what you need to be doing. You're doing the right thing. I can't find it here, but I really do think it's important. Take the messy action. If one person gets something from the content that you're putting out, it's worth doing. And challenge yourself. Can you put an open loop in it? All right, now it's time for our copy clinic with me because, I love you people. We had one submission, and I'm going to do this one a little bit different than I normally do. Normally, we pull it up, look at it, maybe go to the actual website. We will do all of those things. But in the submission, this person was asking about her target audience. She said, hey, in the world of cake, I'm struggling with who my target audience is. I am known for cakes that don't look great, don't just look great. They taste amazing. I would like to create cakes that tell the story and are personal to the recipients, and people come to them for that, come to me for that, and for the confidence they have in the taste and the design elements of what I do. So, but how do I define my audience? And she basically said she's in the wedding cake business. We do celebration cakes, contemporary cakes, custom looking, all around cakes. My immediate thought when I went to your website was, I'm going to pull it up so you guys can see it. This is a beautiful, beautiful site. My immediate thought, you have to sell the experience. How can you sell the experience without having people taste your cakes? The website, even though it's not live yet, is gorgeous. There are a couple things that immediately came to mind. I love that you have a charity piece here. I went to this newsletter section. I put my info in. And when I went to subscribe, oh, now it'll work, watch. When I went to subscribe earlier, it did not work. And so we need to make sure that this works, because for you to do what you're wanting to do, it's going to be important that you build an email list. Now, I will say something that I don't see that I think is going to be so key for you is, with all of these beautiful cakes, do you have any kind of social proof? Because we need to figure out a way to sell this experience. Your question specifically was on our Christmas flyer. And again, you wanted some help with the copy. One, I kind of know what these cakes are, but if I was had no idea, I would say that it would be important to put a sentence with each one. So like the chocolate Guinness cake with Bailey's infused topping, simple blurb. This is a chocolate sponge cake with a Bailey's infused topping that is a buttercream top. Like, just tell them what they're getting. And when you go back, and like I said before, my suggestion for you would be, how are we building our audience, and how are we selling this experience without having a cake in front of you? The way to sell this experience is through testimonials. If you have people who have all of these things, have tasted all of these things, see if you can find a text message or an email or a testimonial or a video. Oh my gosh, I got Jim's cake, and I got the chocolate Guinness cake with Bailey's infused topping, and let me just tell you, it was heaven. The cake was so moist. I could taste the Bailey's and the chocolate frosting on top. It was so good. I would marry that cake if I could. Okay. So you have to see what people are actually saying, because then we want to really focus in on those like moist, heavenly, however they're talking about it, because we have to sell the experience before we sell the cake, if that makes sense at all. Because, I've had a Caribbean island cake with rum cream frosting. I had one that was really, really good. I had one that was really, really not good. And now I look at your stuff and I'm like, oh God, I don't know. Is it going to be like the good one, or is it not going to be like the good one? So we want to put a little blurb of each one, a little description for each one. But overall, I want you to think of how we're filling this funnel. How are we getting people to take advantage of this offer? We've got to sell the experience. I don't know if you have social media, doing reels, showing the cakes, showing people eating the cake. All of those things are going to sell that experience. If you want more information, more like, let's talk this out, absolutely, we can talk about it. But I'm going to tell you that for you and what you do, your social proof is going to be key. If you've done weddings and wedding cakes, get the social proof. I mean, even if they've told you they love it, I'd reach back out to them and say, hey, what was the can you answer these 3 questions for me? What was the best thing about the cake? Can you describe the cake in 3 words? And then if you had to tell somebody who was on the fence about buying this cake, like if there was your best friend was on the fence about buying a cake from me, what would you tell them? Because those things are going to be things that we need to take back to, you could even put a second page on this flyer or a backside on this flyer that had social proof on it. You could also put it in your email list. You can do it in your reels if you have that kind of social media, or your LinkedIn. You can even put it on your website, because what's interesting about your website is there needs to be a place that you've got beautiful cakes. Do you have any cakes in action? And what I mean by that is, like, do you have it at somebody's wedding? Do you have, because some of the stuff that's written here, simple cake is a perfect solution when you need to create an instant celebration. That's beautiful. Whether you need a last minute cake or a simple addition to an afternoon tea, Simply Cake, it's got you covered. It's very, it's good. It's solid on what you're writing. But again, is this selling the experience? And you asked earlier about, when you were talking about, I don't know who my target audience is. I would argue that you have a couple of target audiences. You have wedding cakes. So that's a specific, very specific niche that you could go and really explore. You have corporate, which are probably willing to pay very nice money for beautiful cakes. And then you have the guys off, like the typical families that are buying a cake potentially for an event. And so you have a couple of options. You can pick one and just completely market to that one group. Or if you started like an email list, my suggestion to that would be start your email list, but we could do it in such a way that we are actually segmenting the lists. So either based on how people are signing up, or based on what they've bought in the past, or even based on, something else. Like I've seen people do like quiz it, or like a quiz, what kind of cake would you prefer? And based on those answers, they were segmented into an email group. So for example, I had a client several years ago who had a done for you, a done with you, and a concierge service. And then she had a print on demand, which was its own little sub thing. And so what we did is we created a quiz for her where she went through, and it's actually, we created 10 questions, and then each of the 4 answers were pictures. They were gifts, so like fun little things. And each section was one of her particular clients. So like section A was her done, the DIYers. Section B was the done with you. The next one, the section C was done for you. And then the section D was concierge, glitz diamonds, the whole 9 yards, significantly more expensive client. And so they would go through and they would take this quiz, and at the end it would tell them, oh my gosh, you know what? You're the do-it-yourselfer. We have so many amazing things for you. That stuff will be in your inbox immediately. Or, oh my gosh, you are the type of person who you are ready to have someone just do it all for you 100%. You have the ideas and we execute it. Those resources will be in your inbox shortly. And based on how they answered, they would be segmented to a specific list that we then had specific emails for. Now, you mentioned that you're just starting out. That might be too much. So where do you feel like your heart is telling you to start? And let me just be kind of clear on this. If you market to everybody, if you're talking to everybody, no one is going to hear you. And so another question that I have for you, and just something to think about, is what makes your cakes different? And I don't mean like taste different or anything like that. Like, What is your differentiator? What if I had your cakes to buy from and I don't know, like a grocery store type cake to buy from, besides pricing, what is the differentiator? Are we using premium ingredients? Are we using all vegan ingredients? Are we using, um, you know, prime ingredients? I actually had a client 6 months ago who she was a caterer, and her differentiator was that she shopped local. So her stuff was more expensive because she didn't bulk buy the ingredients for her catering business. She outsourced local to local farmers markets, and she literally would go buy the ingredients the day before the event and spend the whole day making fresh of freshest from the best possible ingredients she could get locally, and that was her differentiator. So, all of that to say, you're on the right track, and I hope you found this helpful. The last thing would be if you have any questions. If you have questions or anything like that, you can do me a favor. You can email them to me, or you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn and send me a DM on those. So those are all things that we can do. I hope you guys found this to be super helpful. I really appreciate you guys spending 50 minutes of your day learning about something that I like to nerd out about. So I hope you guys found this helpful, and I will see you all soon.